Hi, investigators. Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy. It's the end of the week. It's Friday, so we're looking at a roundup of what's been happening in the investigation industry in Australia this week. So first of all, we've had a bit of news on the Gold Coast in relation to window tint and what's legal. So we've had a lawyer in Queensland get himself into strife. Let's find out all about it as reported in the Gold Coast Bulletin.
A Gold Coast lawyer has been fined $200 because his car's tinted windows were too dark. Blake Fraser's car windows were very dark and the luminosity was at the lowest level when he was pulled over by police on the 2nd of July. The Southport Magistrates Court heard he was given an infringement about a month earlier but continued to drive. Prosecutor Sarah Clem said the tint was so dark the visibility was a safety issue. On Wednesday, Fraser pleaded guilty to a charge of vehicle equipment not compliant with vehicle standards, which carries a maximum penalty of a $2,669 fine. The on-the-spot ticket offence costs just $133. The court heard the matter was listed for trial. However, Fraser changed his plea 2 days before it was supposed to start. Defence solicitor Ash Kante, of Ash Kante Lawyers, said Fraser was first pulled over on the first occasion and police took issue with his number plate, wheels and window tint. Mr. Tay said he ordered a new number plate, changed his tyres, but failed to address the tinting before he was pulled over again. He said Fraser had a lot going on in his life at that time. He took all of the burdens of his home. His father was extremely unwell, and he did his level best to try and get those windows changed. He argued Fraser should be discharged of the charge and ordered to donate up to $1,000 to the Children's Hospital for the Queensland Traffic Offender Program. What's the point, really, of him paying for a traffic offence, where he tried his level best to fix it, Mr. Tay said. Outside of court, Mr. Tay said Fraser had made an appointment with a tinting business, but they had cancelled on him. He didn't blatantly disregard the direction he was given. It was really out of his hands, and that can be seen through in doing all of the other things, which are much harder, he said. He said Fraser wanted to take the matter to trial so he could explain his story. Magistrate Michelle Dooley ordered Fraser pay summons costs and fined him $200 with no conviction recorded. Outside of court, Mr. Tay said the fine was unfair, especially since he could have given the money elsewhere. It wasn't a matter of money. It was a matter of principle, and that's why he offered $1,000 donation to the Children's Hospital or to a traffic offenders program, and that would have been a proper use of funds rather than just a fine, he said.
Well, that's how it played out at the Gold Coast Bulletin. I hope those Queensland Police Rego Nazis don't ever see my golf buggy number plate. Oh boy, that's going to be trouble if they do. So in other industry news this week, tragic set of circumstances down in Tasmania for insurance investigation. Looks like that's not going to work on me. Let's try again. Oh, I've got to give up. Put it in the wrong one. So in Tasmania this week, Mark Gordon Bird was sentenced to 4 years in prison for burning down 2 of his houses and a combi van and claiming the insurance for it. Now, he did this over a period of time, different times, different houses in different locations, and he will be serving, he was sentenced to 4 years in Risdon Prison, where he has to serve half of that. He's a father. He is an ex-soldier. He served in East Timor, and he has post-traumatic stress disorder. What you don't see in the newspaper report, tragically, in 2010, he came home one day and he found his wife hanging in the garage. She'd hung herself and committed suicide. So there's been an extremely tragic set of circumstances here, and the magistrate in her findings was very fair, and Mr. Bird is being left with a debt for the combi and a very large debt to an insurer for over $500,000 for the house he burnt down. The judge said in her summary that it doesn't look like there'd be any likelihood of him ever paying that back. No winners in this one. It was insurance fraud. For those of you that don't know, the maximum penalty for insurance fraud in Australia is 14 years in prison. That's the maximum penalty. So he's got 3 cases there. He could have been looking at 3 lots of 14 years in prison had they read the Riot Act to him. But they didn't do that. I don't even think they were even contemplating seeking that. But Mr. Bird's got himself into real trouble there with some bad decisions. Young family, very sad set of circumstances. Definitely no winners in that case. With much better news in Tasmania, M&A Investigations are seeking investigators down there. M&A Investigations are one of the biggest investigation firms in Australia, and they're looking for a workers' compensation investigator in Hobart, and they're paying $65 an hour. So if you live in Tassie, you're a licensed private investigator and you're an Australian Security Academy graduate student, I'll put you in touch with M&A Investigations. Just flick me an email and let's get working for M&A. They're probably the 3rd biggest investigation agency in Australia. And outside of the people that work for them, not many people have ever heard of M&A Investigations. That's just how you like it as a private investigator agency. So that's a good thing. Further to that, we have another vacancy in Victoria this week. And Morris J. Kerrigan Associates are looking for factual and surveillance investigators, licensed factual and surveillance investigators, Melbourne and in regional Victorian areas. So Kerrigans that have been around now for, crikey, must be at least 30 years. They're a national investigation agency, and they want you, if you're in Victoria, to get in touch with them, send your resume, send a copy of your license, send a cover letter. They do personal injury claims, workers' compensation, compulsory third-party claims to the TAC, and public liability matters. Now, it's not just limited to that. They also do general insurance work. So they're seeking people who hold a Victorian security licence as an investigator and you're currently working. You must have a minimum of 12 months insurance investigation. You must possess your own equipment, including a motor vehicle, laptop computer, printer, digital camera and video. Now that's a portable printer they want you to have so you can type your statements and print them on the spot. You must have excellent grammar and reporting skills. Well, your PC or your laptop's going to be doing that for you today, so it's doing 95% of that work. When I used to work for Kerrigan's, I used to handwrite my statements. That's how long ago it was. And it was a nightmare, especially when you got a fussy old ex-school teacher who was one of the witnesses. They'd go through and correct all your statement spelling mistakes and grammatical errors before they'd sign it. So these days, with the laptops, much easier just to cut and paste or to delete and repair, then print it out so they can sign it on the spot. You must have for Kerrigan's, like any other investigation agency, excellent time management skills. And you should be able to demonstrate an understanding of compulsory third-party investigations, public liability investigations, workers' compensation investigations, and general insurance investigations. Now, this is really important because if you understand all of those things, if you understand all of those types of investigations, number one, it means you're an Australian Security Academy graduate student because you learnt those in your course. Number two, they are the requirement for the new Certificate 3 in Investigative Services, the CPP 30619. All the assessments in that qualification say you must know how to do a public liability investigation, CTP motor vehicle accident investigation, workers' compensation, personal injury or psychological injury investigation. So Kerrigan's are only asking for what you learnt in your course. Now, if you didn't learn those things in your course, why did you do that course? If they didn't have it, if they didn't teach you how to do statements or introduce you to those concepts and show you how to do the investigations, the expectation of the employer is that you'll have the ability to do all those investigations. And you will be able to go to James at Kerrigan's and say, look, here's an example of a report I wrote for workers' compensation, James. Here's an example of some witness statements I took for CTP liability for transport accident. They're simulated, they're not real, but this is how I was learnt to do them. And if you've got your 12 months experience and you've got those to show them, and if you've got the ability to work to tight deadlines like they require, because all their investigations have got to be back in 14 days from the day you receive them through your case management system, and you learnt that in your course at the Australian Security Academy, you've got a very good chance of getting that job. So get on to Kerrigan's, apply for them. They're advertised on Seek this week for factual and surveillance investigators. Now, if you're going to be a surveillance investigator, you've got to play nicely with others. If you join a Facebook group that just plays down the industry, bitches about everybody else and the employers, and you're there liking those comments and you're there making those comments, Kerrigan's won't touch you. Neither will M&A investigations, neither will any other major employer in Australia. You've got a lot to bitch about because you'll never get any work. So don't get involved with those types of things on social networking. Stay out of it. Guarantee your career by going out there and working, not sitting on Facebook and moaning and complaining like people that are never going to get a job because they did the wrong course or they're just the wrong type of person to be in this industry. So there's a lot happening out there this week. A lawyer on the Gold Coast got his window tinting wrong. Surveillance investigators, don't you do that. A man in Hobart was jailed for 4 years. He'll serve 2 years of that for 3 counts of insurance fraud. That's general insurance fraud, home and contents, and M&A investigations and Kerrigan's are looking for investigators. So that's our week here at the Australian Security Academy. I hope you've enjoyed it today. If you did, give it a like. I'll see you next week when I tell you what happened during the week next week. And don't forget, down in Victoria, we've got our ING meeting coming up on the 17th of March.